Ted Bundy was one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, known for his charm, intelligence, and brutal crimes. His criminal activities, which spanned several states in the 1970s, involved the kidnapping, assault, and murder of numerous young women and girls. We'll delve into the meticulous investigation that gripped a nation in fear, the shocking revelations that unfolded during his trial, and the enduring legacy of both fear and morbid fascination his crimes left behind. This is the story of Ted Bundy, a cautionary tale that will leave you forever questioning the face of evil. But before we start, like and subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Let's get started. Theodore Robert Cowell. Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Vermont. His early life was shrouded in secrecy and confusion. There's debate about his true parentage, with some theories suggesting he was raised by his biological mother as his sister. This lack of a stable family structure may have planted the seeds of his future demons. Bundy's childhood was seemingly unremarkable. He moved frequently with his family, eventually settling in Washington state. Though considered average in intelligence, he displayed a fascination with true crime stories from a young age. This morbid curiosity, coupled with an increasingly withdrawn personality, raised concerns among those who knew him. Bundy attended the University of Washington, where he blossomed academically and socially. He even served as president of the Republican Party Club at the university. However, beneath this facade of normalcy, something sinister was brewing. Ted Bundy's early criminal activities were characterized by a series of escalating behaviors that ultimately led to his becoming one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Though Bundy's exact timeline of criminal behavior is somewhat murky due to his deceptive nature and conflicting accounts, certain early incidents mark the beginning of his descent into violent crime. Bundy's early years were marked by antisocial behavior and petty criminal activities. As a teenager, he was known to engage in voyeurism, peeping into women's windows and indulging in fantasies about controlling and harming them. These behaviors were early indicators of the more severe crimes he would later commit. In 1969, Bundy is believed to have attempted his first kidnapping. The incident involved an attempted abduction of an unidentified woman, which, though unsuccessful, demonstrated his growing boldness and willingness to commit violent acts. Bundy's killing spree officially began in January 1974 when he attacked and murdered Linda Ann Healy, a University of Washington student. This marked the beginning of a series of murders that would spread across several states and terrorize communities. Linda Ann Healy, January 1974. Bundy's first confirmed murder was that of Linda Ann Healy. He broke into her basement apartment, knocked her unconscious, and took her away. Her remains were found a year later on Taylor Mountain, along with those of other missing women. Donna Gail Manson, March 1974. A 19-year-old Evergreen State College student, Donna Manson disappeared on her way to a concert on campus. Her body was never found, but Bundy later confessed to her murder. Susan Rancourt, April 1974. Susan Rancourt, a student at Central Washington State College, vanished while walking to her dorm after a meeting. Bundy confessed to her murder, and her skull was later discovered on Taylor Mountain. Roberta Kathleen Parks, May 1974. Roberta Parks disappeared from Oregon State University after leaving her dorm to meet friends for coffee. Her skull was also found on Taylor Mountain. Brenda Carol Ball, June 1974. Brenda Ball was last seen leaving the Flame Tavern in Burien, Washington. Her skull was found alongside other victims on Taylor Mountain. Jorgan Hawkins, June 1974. Jorgan Hawkins vanished while walking a short distance between fraternity houses at the University of Washington. Bundy later recounted in detail how he lured her into his car, knocked her unconscious, and transported her to Issaquah, where he murdered her. Bundy's early murders established a pattern that he would follow throughout his criminal career. He often used his good looks, charm, and feigned disabilities or injuries to gain the trust of his victims. Once he had them isolated, he would overpower and incapacitate them, often using blunt force trauma to the head. He would then transport them to a secondary location where he would sexually assault and kill them. Bundy would sometimes return to the crime scenes to engage in necrophilia with the decomposing bodies. Bundy's tactics evolved as he gained more confidence and experience. He began abducting women in broad daylight and from crowded areas, demonstrating an increasing boldness and a sense of invincibility. The disappearances of Ott and Naslund from Lake Sammamish State Park in July 1974, in particular, highlighted his brazen nature and provided crucial witness descriptions that helped law enforcement create a composite sketch. Ted Bundy's psychological profile is as complex and disturbing as his crimes. Bundy displayed numerous characteristics associated with psychopathy, a severe personality disorder marked by a lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and often violent behavior. Understanding Bundy's psychological profile provides insight into the motivations and methods behind his criminal actions. Bundy's early life was fraught with confusion and deceit. Born to an unwed mother, he was raised believing his grandparents were his parents and his mother was his sister. This complex family dynamic may have contributed to his deep-seated feelings of abandonment and identity issues. Bundy's father figure, his grandfather, was reportedly abusive, which might have further impacted his psychological development. Bundy was known for his charm and intelligence, traits that allowed him to manipulate those around him effectively. He was able to present himself as a polite, educated, and trustworthy individual, which helped him gain the trust of his victims and elude law enforcement for years. This superficial charm is a common trait among psychopaths, who can often mimic normal emotional responses to deceive others. A defining characteristic of Bundy's psychopathy was his profound lack of empathy. He demonstrated no genuine remorse for his actions, even when confronted with the suffering he caused. During interviews and his trial, Bundy often appeared detached and indifferent, showing no real emotional response to the accounts of his brutal crimes. This lack of empathy allowed him to commit heinous acts without the moral or emotional constraints that typically deter such behavior. Bundy exhibited a high degree of narcissism and grandiosity. He had an inflated sense of self-worth and often believed he was smarter and more capable than those around him, including law enforcement. This overconfidence led him to take greater risks, such as his brazen daylight abductions. His sense of superiority was also evident in his decision to represent himself in court, where he relished the attention and opportunity to showcase his intelligence. Control and domination were central to Bundy's psychological makeup. He derived pleasure not just from the physical act of murder, but from the power and control he exerted over his victims. This need for control extended to his interactions with the media and law enforcement, where he often tried to manipulate the narrative and portray himself as a misunderstood individual. Bundy's crimes were sexually motivated, and he displayed a pattern of sexual deviance and violence. His attacks involved sexual assault, and he often engaged in necrophilia with the bodies of his victims. This macabre behavior highlights his severe psychopathology and the depth of his depravity. His sexual fantasies were deeply intertwined with his need for control and domination, manifesting in increasingly violent and sadistic acts. Bundy's confessions were often inconsistent and manipulative. He provided varying accounts of his crimes, sometimes embellishing details or withholding information to maintain a sense of control over the situation. This behavior frustrated investigators and made it difficult to ascertain the full extent of his crimes. His willingness to lie and manipulate even when facing execution underscores his deeply ingrained psychopathic traits. Various psychological evaluations of Bundy diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder, characterized by a pervasive pattern of disregard for the rights of others, deceitfulness, impulsivity, irritability, and a lack of remorse. Some experts also suggested he exhibited traits of narcissistic personality disorder, given his grandiosity and need for admiration. Ted Bundy's case has had a significant impact on the field of criminal psychology and the study of psychopathy. His ability to blend into society, coupled with his brutal and calculated crimes, has provided valuable insights into the behavior and mind of a psychopath. Bundy's case has been extensively studied to understand the interplay between charm, manipulation, and violence in psychopathic behavior. The hunt for the Ted killer became a desperate race against time. Panic gripped the Pacific Northwest as disappearances continued, and fear morphed into a chilling awareness that a sadistic predator was stalking the streets. Law enforcement agencies across several states scrambled to pool resources and create a task force dedicated to catching the elusive killer. Leading the investigation were detectives Robert Ressler and John Douglas, pioneers in the field of criminal profiling. They meticulously combed through evidence at each crime scene, searching for patterns and clues that could reveal the killer's personality and motivations. This groundbreaking approach, in its infancy at the time, would become a cornerstone of modern serial killer investigations. Building a profile wasn't easy. The lack of a physical connection between the victims initially hampered progress. However, as more survivors came forward, a chilling picture began to emerge. Women who had escaped Bundy's clutches described a man with a charming demeanor and a disarming smile who used various tactics to lure them away. A feigned injury, a request for help carrying something heavy, a story about a lost puppy. These details, coupled with the victims' shared physical descriptions, started to paint a composite picture of the monster behind the disappearances. Police released a sketch based on the survivor descriptions. The image, a chillingly accurate portrayal of Ted Bundy, was plastered on news bulletins and distributed across the region. This move proved to be a double-edged sword. While it did lead some to recognize Bundy and come forward with unsettling encounters, it also allowed him to adjust his tactics, becoming even more cautious and calculated in his approach. Meanwhile, frustration mounted within the task force. The lack of a concrete suspect and the seemingly random nature of the attacks created a constant sense of urgency. They were chasing a phantom, a shadow leaving a trail of terror in its wake. Press conferences were held, pleading with the public for any information that could lead to a break in the case. The turning point came in a seemingly mundane traffic stop. In 1975, Bundy was pulled over for a routine violation. During the stop, officers noticed inconsistencies in his story and became suspicious of the car he was driving. A Volkswagen matching the description of a vehicle seen near the last known location of a missing woman. A search of the car revealed a trove of incriminating evidence. Fibers from various victims' clothing, handcuffs, and a ski mask. These items, along with the growing body of circumstantial evidence, finally provided the concrete link needed to arrest Ted Bundy. The arrest brought a wave of relief to the terrorized communities, but the investigation was far from over. Bundy, ever the manipulator, attempted to use his legal knowledge to his advantage. He initially refused legal representation, opting to defend himself in court. This strategy backfired spectacularly, as his arrogance and lack of legal expertise exposed him further. The evidence against Bundy was overwhelming. Survivor testimonies, physical evidence from his car, and meticulous crime scene analysis finally painted a clear picture of his monstrous acts. Though the jury's verdict was a foregone conclusion, the trial provided a chilling glimpse into the mind of a monster. The man who once charmed those around him now stood exposed. A predator who had meticulously planned and executed his crimes with a chilling level of detachment. The trial of Ted Bundy became a media spectacle unlike any other. The charismatic college student turned accused serial killer captivated the nation's attention. Television cameras flooded the courtroom, broadcasting the proceedings live, turning a legal battle into a macabre form of entertainment. For many, the trial was a chance to see justice served, but it also provided a disturbing platform for Bundy's manipulative personality. Bundy initially opted to represent himself, a decision many saw as a calculated attempt to manipulate the jury and public perception. He displayed surprising legal acumen, cross-examining witnesses with a chilling calmness that belied the gravity of the situation. However, his lack of legal experience and the sheer weight of evidence against him ultimately proved his strategy to be a grave miscalculation. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, including survivor testimonies, forensic analysis of physical evidence found at crime scenes and in Bundy's car, and even Bundy's own dental records, which matched bite marks found on a victim. As the trial progressed, the facade of normalcy that Bundy had so carefully cultivated began to crumble. Survivors recounted their terrifying encounters, their voices trembling as they described his deceptive charm, followed by sudden, horrifying violence. During the trial, a bombshell revelation emerged. While representing himself, Bundy surprised the court by proposing marriage to his longtime girlfriend, Carol Ann Boone, who remained steadfastly loyal throughout the proceedings. This bizarre act, carried out in the midst of a murder trial, further cemented the public's perception of Bundy as a twisted manipulator. Boone even gave birth to a daughter while Bundy was on death row, a chilling testament to the power of his manipulative abilities. Despite his attempts to control the narrative, the prosecution relentlessly exposed Bundy's dark side. In a move that shocked both the court and the public, Bundy requested a postponement of the trial, claiming he needed more time to prepare his defense. He then stunned everyone by firing his remaining legal team and announcing he would resume his self-defense. However, his legal skills were no match for the mountain of evidence, and in 1979, Ted Bundy was found guilty of the murders of 2 young women. He was sentenced to death. Following his conviction, a chilling truth came to light. Facing the prospect of execution, Bundy began to confess. He admitted to a string of murders across several states, the actual number of victims likely far exceeding the confirmed cases. His motives remained a chilling mystery. Did he seek power over life and death? Was it fueled by a deep-seated hatred of women? These questions continue to haunt us. Bundy's confessions provided a glimpse into the mind of a monster, but they also raised disturbing questions about the effectiveness of the media spectacle surrounding his trial. Did the constant coverage glorify violence and give Bundy a platform to further manipulate the public? This remains a complex issue, a dark counterpoint to the satisfaction of seeing justice served. In 1989, Ted Bundy met his end in the electric chair. His execution brought a long-awaited closure to the families of his victims and a sense of relief to a society that had been gripped by fear for years. However, the legacy of his crimes continues to cast a long shadow. Justice, however, comes with a heavy price. The sheer brutality of Bundy's crimes and the media frenzy surrounding his trial left a deep scar on the collective psyche. Women, particularly those with a similar physical appearance to his victims, felt a heightened sense of vulnerability. The carefree days of hitchhiking or walking alone at night became a distant memory, replaced by a constant awareness of the potential dangers lurking in the shadows. Bundy's case also revolutionized the way law enforcement approached serial killers. The meticulous profiling techniques pioneered by detectives Ressler and Douglas during the investigation became a cornerstone of modern serial killer investigations. These advancements allowed police to better understand the psychology of such criminals and predict their future actions. However, the Bundy case also sparked a debate about the ethical implications of criminal profiling. Critics argue that these techniques can lead to racial profiling and the wrongful imprisonment of innocent people. Finding the balance between effective investigation and protecting civil liberties remains a delicate dance. Beyond law enforcement, Bundy's crimes sparked a cultural fascination with true crime. Newspapers, books, and documentaries continue to delve into the darkness of his psyche, attempting to understand the motivations of such a monster. While this fascination can be a valuable tool in raising awareness about serial killers and their methods, it also carries a risk. The media can inadvertently glorify violence and give notoriety to the very monsters they seek to expose. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Bundy's legacy is the question of what makes a monster? Experts continue to debate the factors that contribute to the development of a serial killer. Was it a troubled childhood, a genetic predisposition, or a combination of factors? Understanding the roots of such evil may be impossible, but it's a question that continues to challenge criminologists and psychologists. The story of Ted Bundy is a chilling reminder that evil can walk among us disguised as normalcy. It serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to be vigilant and aware of the potential dangers that lurk beneath the surface. However, it's crucial to remember the victims, young women whose lives were brutally cut short. Their stories deserve to be told. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, happy exploring!